Welcome in. So today, I'm going to go over some of the basics for fitting. This will not be everything you need to know, but it'll be enough to get you started. So this is the fit that I ended up going with. We've mostly paid attention to this right side where you put on the modules. For this episode, we are going to be focused on this side over here. So in holes and fits, you have personal fittings, corporate fittings, and community fittings as filters. And then you can filter for the current hull. If you uncheck this, then it will show you all of the fittings that are available to you. So let's say we wanted to see what the community fitting was for this hull in particular, the Nereus. And you see a little bit of a description on the left there. And it'll open up a simulation of this fitting for the ship that you're using. This one we cannot use, partially because of the cloaking device, which we do not have access to as an alpha character. This is also sacrificing a lot of tank. You do get 11,000 cubic meters. However, you are very fragile, and without the cloaking device, that's going to be an issue. So we can exit that one. And you can also, if you uncheck the current hull, you can search for community fittings for example, SOE, which stands for Sisters of Eve. That is the epic arc that we're going to be doing next. And you can see there is a fit for a ship called an Algos here. And there's also a ship for the Catalyst. And we're probably going to end up using this once we start the epic arc, which will be pretty shortly. And this is a great way to find out what kind of modules you might want to be looking at putting onto your ship. There's a whole category of thought behind fitting ships. It is kind of like a puzzle piece. You're balancing what you want with affordability. Like you can see down here, this one's about 4.2 million, which is probably the most you'd want to put into a catalyst. You're also balancing your CPU and power grid, and your capacitor usage. From this, we can exit for now. And let us assume that we wanted to start over. We can go into simulate. And once you're in simulation, you can take things on and off. So let's take off, for example, this medium shield extender. And then if you click on this, it'll bring up a list of everything that's available for this, filtered by the mid slots there. And every different power slot has slightly different usage. High slots tend to be things like turrets, missile launchers, cloaking devices, and salvagers go up in the high slots as well. Mid slots, it's mostly electronic warfare, shielding, and propulsion are the main things. On the bottom is more utility and armor, and hull stuff goes down here as well. In the rigs, these are their own separate thing. In your simulation, you can destroy them, and it's not actually going to do anything, because you haven't purchased anything yet. If you click in the rigs, you can see it's available here. And let's exit this for now. I'll show you one for charges. So if we go into holes and fits, we go back into this catalyst, and then we switch back over to hardware, and go to charges. You can click on each thing, like this cap booster, you actually have to have charges for. And that's electron particle, accelerator, cannon, anode light electron particle cannon. That is a mouthful. You can see which charges this particular weapon uses. There are faction options as well. So that is super handy. I found that when I was first starting out trying to figure out what kind of ammunition I needed was very difficult. So knowing about this little charges button here is incredibly helpful when you're first starting and you don't know how everything goes together. You can also, there is a filter for just drones. This doesn't have a drone bay, but from here you can go and get combat drones, between light, medium, heavy, sentry drones, and there's other stuff too. most of these down here are locked behind Omega, unfortunately. So we'll primarily be using combat drones for most things. And now let's go back to this Nereus here. So what I decided to do is go for mostly tank. The best advice I can give you when you're fitting a ship is know what you're looking to do. For this ship in particular, I wanted to get up to 10,000 cubic meters, because I was going to be hauling all of my ships. And you can see there in the description, these are 5,000 cubic meters per unit for the destroyers. And frigates are 2,500 cubic meters. So I was able to grab 2 catalysts, and then 4 frigates. And then I believe my last trip, I didn't have the rigs, because I had to grab the other Nereus that I had. And I managed to fit the last 2 ventures by taking the modules off of this ship, putting them in a Corvette, driving it over, taking the modules out, trashing the Corvette, and putting them on the other Nereus, which is a bit of a complicated way of doing things, but is the most efficient way sometimes to just move modules around. So I started with having everything Tech 1 to make this as cheap as possible. And then once I figured out exactly what I was looking for, which was that 10,000, I ended up upgrading some of these cargo capacity ones to Tech 2. I took off some of the initial armor shielding I had down here, and kept on a damage control unit. Damage controls are great for low slots. If you don't know what to put on a ship in the low slot, I highly recommend using one of these. And then just pure shield extenders and a active shield hardener. This is a Galente ship, so usually you would go for armor, but because the Nereus has a lot of mid slots and we're using the low slots to increase the cargo capacity, I felt it better to go for shielding on this one. And shields are just a little bit easier to regenerate automatically, because when you have armor tanking, you need both armor modules and you need an armor repairer to make sure you can sustain damage. Whereas with the shields, they'll just automatically regenerate. And that is basically most of what I went through. I am going to hop over and show you a different tool that is available for you. So this site, zkillboard.com, or zkillboard for Americans, this is a very useful tool when you're looking at fittings. This shows you all of the recent kills that have happened for anyone that has linked their account to this website, which is most people. You can search up here for specific ships. So for example, we can search for Nereuses and see these ones are going to pretty much exclusively be kills because they're not going to be able to take stuff out, but we can take a look through here. I'm ignoring all the nullsec ones because what I discovered is that a lot of these are specialty. This one's actually decent. A lot of them were the warp field generators, which is not what we're looking for. So if we take a look at this one that happened in Losec, this was another one. Yeah, these sinusoidal field generators. This is definitely not the quickest way to learn how to do fittings, because you do have to kind of click through and see what you're looking for. However, this is... yeah, here's one which does that. This can be super useful. Less so in this case, just because there is this secondary use that I did not know existed of using them for creating the warp fields. Let's take a look on the next page. See if we can find one. This happened in a 1.0 security system. Yes, this one, they have the prototype cloaking device, inertial stabilizers, which are pretty normal, warp core stabilizer, then shield tanking, and a micro warp drive. They were using the micro warp drive cloak trick, which I'll demonstrate at some point. I can't do it in this character because we can't use a cloak, but it is something that's very good to know. But stuff like this is pretty interesting. I did figure out that if you go to Eve Shipfit, and there was a button somewhere. Yes, here. So if you copy this fit to the clipboard, and then we hop back into the game, open up fittings, and there's this little import and export. Import from clipboard. It'll import from the kill mail this fit. Then you can, for example, simulate it. And then you can save this as a fitting if you like this one in particular. Like I said, this wasn't super helpful for the Nereus, but for things like catalysts, if you're doing like faction warfare, once you know what systems to look in for kills, it might be good to see what people are running in faction warfare systems. And this one in particular, we just don't have the correct skills for them. Stuff in the cargo hold. Yeah, the other thing with fittings is when you save a fitting, it holds everything in the cargo hold. Let us temporarily exit this. So now when you go in here, let's exit that, switch us back to current hold and personal fittings. When you are simulating things, this was the first tanky version of the Nereus that I brought up. It only has 5,000 cubic meters, but it did have a reactive armor hardener, small armor repair, and steel plates. And it does give you the warning that you're using both armor and shield, but that is perfectly fine from my experience. But what you can see here is that if you add stuff to the cargo hold, like these hobgoblins, I'm actually going to say, let's say we reduce this to 1. Now, if you save this fitting, especially if you're just editing, if you remove the little star, hit save, it'll ask if you want to update it. Now when we go back in, you'll see that it saved the drone here. This is a good way if you're using filaments or something to create a ship that you can really easily just grab everything you need and go. Let's save this again to fix what we just did. And now, for example, if we don't have all of this, when we click Fit Ship, it'll bring up a list of the things we need. If we don't have the steel plates or the reactive armor hardener, you can also hit Buy All. And if you are in a station that has everything you need, you can just buy what you need and fit it automatically, which is super useful. You can also, if you just click over here, this will just buy everything, regardless of what you have in your hangar at the moment. Like so. And you can buy everything. And this is why usually you end up in a trade hub, at least at first, so that you can get all of your fittings easily, so that when you lose a ship, you end up back here, and then you don't have to worry about like going and fetching different modules and stuff like that. Let's actually switch back to this, because it accidentally fitted what it could have the tanky ship fit. And I'm going to put both of these fittings that I have created. I will put links to the clipboard. So if we copy this to the clipboard, there is utilities notepad. We can create a new note. Fittings. Yes, this just creates a basic text document, more or less, is what you'll end up with. I'll post these down in the comments below, and you can take a look at those if you want to import them into your game and use them. Both of these fittings are pretty decent, and because I'm in alpha, you don't have to worry too much about skill requirements. This one with the large capacity is about 4.3 million. The tanky version is about 5 million. If you're in Omega, I do recommend having the cloaking device and probably a micro warp drive instead of this. But since we're in alpha, we don't have access to that. It is what it is. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. We got all of our ships over. Didn't really run into any issues. Between the bookmarks and the Nereus that I was flying being super tanky, everyone just left me alone as I transported what little not too valuable things I had over here. So next time we're going to be fitting these catalysts, or fitting at least one of them, and going and working on the Sisters of Eve epic arc, which is going to take quite a while. It's quite an extensive thing, but it's good for the ISK. So yeah, I hope you're doing well. Stay radiant. And next week is a holiday here in the US. I am going to take a break and skip having a video out next Thursday, but there'll be one the following Thursday. I'll see you later. Bye.